There is there's a lawsuit being heard in a Connecticut courtroom, and it's being heard against Remington Arms Company. It's brought by some parents at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut, because it was one of Remington's guns that this very deranged, unfortunately, individual, Adam Lanza, used when he opened fire and killed those 20 children. And that was a horrible, horrible day here in our country. I still remember the date, December 14th, 2012, right around Christmas, and what a horrible Christmas that had to be for so many parents. The claim that's being made is that, by the parents, is that Remington should never have made the AR-15 that this guy used. It shouldn't have been available for sale to civilians because it's a military-style weapon. And they're also suing the distributor, Camfor, and River Sales, which has, I guess they were the retailers that sold the weapon, but these two are being charged with negligent entrustment. That's basically selling a weapon to somebody who they knew was going to use it to harm someone else. I don't know how they make that determination. And that's kind of the problem I have with these types of lawsuits. Whether or not they can uphold that charge in court, I think, is really another question. Remington seeking dismissal of the suit because they say, hey, look, we're immune under an 05 law. But there are exceptions to that law, and that's what the plaintiff's lawyers are going to argue. And here, just to look at this, because as I see this case with guns, it makes me also think of cars. What happens if somebody takes a car and is texting? Do you sue the phone company or do you sue the car manufacturer? Do you sue the individual? I've invited to join me today Patrick Salvi II of the law firm Salvi, Showstock and Pritchard in Chicago. He's a graduate of Notre Dame Law School, and this is his area of expertise and practice. And Counselor, it's good to have you here. Welcome, Patrick. Thank you for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
This is an interesting story. Gun manufacturers being held liable for mass shootings. And I just want to get my head around it, and I wonder what other areas this can ripple out into. First, your professional opinion. Is this case just a long shot for the parents of these children, and why go after the gun manufacturer?
Sure. I think that there is the PLCAA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, and I think a lot of folks have gotten a little bit of exposure to this during the course of the presidential debates because on the Democratic side you see Hillary attacking Bernie Sanders for having voted for this particular act in trying to say that he's not strong enough against guns. And so folks have been exposed to this a little bit. So when you say, is this a long shot?
Mm-hmm.
You're asking me to kind of crawl into the mind of the judge out in Connecticut to figure out if he or she is going to be essentially using preemption, the doctrine of preemption, that federal law preempts state law, and finding under the factual scenario of the Sandy Hook's particular shooting that it doesn't fall under one of the exceptions that's carved out. And the exceptions that are carved out require higher levels of proof. It's not strict liability where someone manufactures a gun, they sell it, and someone goes out and harms someone. Well, it's not so simple as that where, okay, now I have an action against the manufacturer. You have to have other proofs in order to actually establish culpability, even if it's negligence, a failure to use reasonable care, some sort of pre-existing knowledge, something that the manufacturer knew or should have known. So, for example, if it can be proved that the manufacturer under these circumstances sold this gun knowing or should have known with the exercise of ordinary care that someone with a mental disability, such as what's being alleged here in the Sandy Hook's occurrence, that the person had a mental disability, we heard about that on the news, if they knew that or should have known that with just reasonable diligence, can they be held responsible? And that's an interesting debate. And it's going to be a question for that judge to determine whether or not there's federal preemption under those exceptions under the PLCAA.
Yeah, I just wonder how plaintiffs can establish that the distributor and the retailer could know that Adam Lanza was going to use a weapon that he bought to harm someone else. I mean, that to me is just a big leap.
It is, and a leap in the sense that in the absence of proofs, one could see how such a lawsuit would fall flat on its face. On the other hand, if I were able to bring forward witnesses and evidence
Right.
that established that sort of knowledge, especially in this day and age, you have a lot more video than we used to have. You have record keeping and computerized record keeping that's a lot better than it's ever been. So if you're able to
That's a good point.
put together that type of evidence and show a level of culpability, I don't think and I know there are plenty of folks that are very staunch supporters of the Second Amendment and those rights that have kind of taken different twists and turns since our founders put that into the Bill of Rights. But if you have a situation where a manufacturer is knowingly profiting and saying, to hell with who we sell these to and their intentions, we just want to profit.
Well, no, I understand that. I guess let's look down the road. If parents were to win this case, could it be used as a precedent to say, okay, to Ford, to Chevy, to whoever who uses a car to deliberately run someone else over? I mean, is that a leap in terms of my own logic here? But how far does it go? How far does it go?
Yeah, how far does it go? Because you're comparing cars to guns, and cars kill people at an alarming rate, and tens of thousands of people every year are killed in automobile accidents. I don't know how many of them are necessarily intentionally inflicted. It's probably a very small percentage. But I think to compare cars, which are by the definition of what they're designed to do, modes of transportation, to guns, which are either used perhaps in gaming, hunting, and that's one area of use. But in other
well, make
terms,
it knives then.
What
knives?
are guns for? What are they for? They're to kill something.
Yeah.
It's to kill something, or for sport if you're going to the range or you're clay shooting. Those are different endeavors. But at the end of the day, if it's used in a society as opposed to at a range or clay shooting or where you're hunting, it's used to kill something, and that's not what cars are manufactured for. So I don't think that is the slippery slope. And just so that your listeners are aware, a Connecticut jury decision on a particular case is not going to set precedent really anywhere else. It will be interesting. It will cause a stir. It'll cause plaintiffs' lawyers, defense lawyers, people that have loved ones that have been killed, manufacturers maybe to do things a little bit differently, maybe even more safely. It may have a ripple effect, but as far as precedent, it really doesn't set any precedent. If it does go up to the appellate court and there's an appellate opinion, there would be precedent then for the Connecticut courts that would be mandatory authority. But it wouldn't really be mandatory precedent really anywhere else, although it would be interesting just for our society as to how folks would react. And I would suggest that if there is strong evidence that these manufacturers, under the exceptions under the law, the federal law, and they did things that would then allow a jury verdict against the manufacturers, it would be my hope that the Seventh Amendment, which should be kept in just as high regard as the Second Amendment, the Seventh Amendment is what guarantees our right to a jury trial in civil cases, would just as well be regarded in the sense that a jury has spoken, they've heard the facts. Hey, gun manufacturers, let's do things a little bit differently so we can lower the probability of this happening.
Hey, well, Mr. Salvi, I want to thank you for being with me. I'm up against the clock, so I got to leave it at that point in time.